take it as a good sign that nobody's running for the door anyway, and people are still linked into it. We're going to move to the tables now, but in moving to the tables, we decided we'd have a brief input, drawing from those anchor values that Rachel introduced to serve as an inspiration or a provocation for the debate. And I was asked to do the first one based on the anchor value of radical hope, which had, I think, a particular resonance when we discussed these values last year. Radical hope is defined by the Solidarity Network as the belief that change is possible and that what we do matters, embracing uncertainty and pursuing a passionate engagement with the demand for an action on change, with attention trained on a horizon that is clear, egalitarian, ecologically sustainable and socially just. And radical hope gets radical from its link with those other anchor values that Rachel mentioned, the anchor value of equality, ecological sustainability, community and solidarity. Horvath identifies the current context as one not characterised by hope, but characterised by despair. He finds, yet no one seems to believe in the future anymore. Our world no longer appears connected by a shared hope of a better future. On the contrary, it's hyper-connected by a prevailing feeling that there's no future at all. And civil society organisations concerned with equality and environmental sustainability have not been immune to that stranglehold over hope and imagination that is held by the belief there is no alternative. Pizzigati warns, plutocracies rest upon cynicism, upon a deep-rooted sense that what we do as average people doesn't matter, that the rich always get richer. And he goes on to challenge civil society to attack that cynicism and to raise hopes that things can change. And interestingly, Emily Dickinson, the poet, captures how persistent and how insistent hope is in her poem. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. Solnit, who's the great champion of radical hope, reminds us in our most recent work, The Beginning Comes After the End, that the current moment should be seen in terms of the beginning of the next era, coming after the end of the last one, and in between, where we are now, comes a lot of falling apart. And she says, hope lies in the emergence of that next era. Hope draws from the progress made in enabling the end of the last era. And she emphasises the importance of memory in this regard. Hope is grounded in an understanding of the past as much as uncertainty about the future. She notes that we need litanies or recitations or monuments to the victories that led to the demise of the current era so that they are landmarks in everybody's mind. And we don't do that. We don't celebrate those successes. And Brueggemann says, memory produces hope in the same way that amnesia produces despair. So Solnit then places hope centre stage on our agenda as activists for an egalitarian, ecologically sustainable and socially just future. Hope, she says, is an embrace of the unknown, an alternative to the certainty of both the optimist and the pessimist. Hope locates itself in the premise that we don't know what will happen, and that in the spaciousness of that uncertainty, there is room to act. And when you recognise uncertainty, she says, you recognise you may be able to influence outcomes. Colours, one of the founders of Black Lives Matter, poses hope even more centrally in establishing that the mission of Black Lives Matter was to provide hope and inspiration for collective action, to build collective power, to achieve collective transformation. So radical hope, then, is an essential element in our strategy for change. Hope is insufficient on its own, though. It demands that we pursue a passionate engagement with building that better future on those grounds of uncertainty, drawing on those memories of past victories. And radical hope demands that we build new agendas, bring forward new ideas and vision for society, ideas that inspire hope, convince as to their feasibility and draw popular support. Ideas have power, and we're challenged to change our story, move out of defensive mode, and to champion and pursue that what we want. In such a context today, we discuss our guide frame for local dialogue that Paul introduced. Radical hope demands that we align both our organisational goals and our organisational practice with our values, giving time and space for internal reflection to ensure this. We need to pursue goals that are trained on that egalitarian, ecologically sustainable and socially just horizon suggested by radical hope. just as we must sustain organisations that align with the values of radical hope, equality, ecological sustainability, community and solidarity. And in such a context today, we discuss our value statement that Rachel introduced. And finally, radical hope demands that we create a new space for civil society, seeking an evolution of the democratic process so that people have a say and communicate their demands with effect. In such a context, we discuss today the manifesto for civil society that Damien introduced, a manifesto to enable that civil society to create the conditions for people to have an impact and to have influence. So radical hope is centred on a horizon of interconnected issues. A sense of separation is replaced by one of connection. A reality of silos is replaced by one of solidarity. And we're challenged to build platforms for connection and solidarity, spaces for collaboration and coordination across the breadth of civil society. And that's why we're growing the Solidarity Network. And that's why today, for me, is so important.